Hi there, welcome to the TCR Performance Lab. Today we're going to talk about overview of the concept of threshold. Very popular nowadays, but also lots of confusion. So we're going to try and talk about different methods and different definitions of how this word threshold is involved in your cycling and triathlon training. For those cyclists out there and triathletes, most of you guys now are trying to get into some form of performance analysis tool. Most of you guys are getting into using Garmin's or some kind of performance computer that has all this data. A lot of it is surrounded by a term called threshold. So what we'll talk about today is ways of testing for it, from lab measures, which we do here, as well as practical measures, which you can do in a lab or with a home trainer, as well as outdoor. However, what you should probably know, why do you need to get this done? Threshold is the marker that we use for gauging performance and if you're improving. So are you getting any better in your cycling and triathlon? Let's see where your threshold's at. So in regards to threshold, the big common term used in cycling and triathlon, threshold is basically a intensity you can hold for about an hour. So in cycling, about a 30 to 40k ride. Running would be about a 10k to 15k run, depends how fast you are. Triathlon, very similar distance to cycling, 30 to 40 kilometers. That's really important for training in terms of what you do in spin classes. It's all based off your threshold. Coaches want to know when to push you above that number, below that number. So it's kind of the gold standard number to know what you need for training. So that's what we're going to show you today. Now we understand why threshold is important. We need to test this number or this variable in our training and in racing. The first method to look at is the VO2 test. V meaning volume, O2 is oxygen. This is a really important test to do because it gives us a lot of information. Both thresholds, the aerobic one, the anaerobic one, it's probably the most accurate method of testing just because it uses a high-end metabolic grade measuring system, and we measure a lot of variables at once. So this is pretty much the gold standard. Not a lot of places have it, more performance labs do. If you do have a chance to do a VO2 test, I would suggest doing it just because the data is so good and very, very accurate. So we've shown you the VO2 test for determining your thresholds and a bunch of cardiovascular data. However, you could also do another way of measuring your thresholds through a blood lactate test. Here it's quite simple. We use a lancet to poke your finger. We take a small droplet of blood, do it over several workloads, and we'll monitor how your blood lactate increases over time and over workload. From that, we take the data, we graph it, and you can see where your thresholds are at. Here we're just looking at one variable, blood lactate, versus power and heart rate. Easy test to do and can be done outside of a lab situation. I'm showing you two basically lab grade testing sessions, a VO2 test, a blood lactate test. The third one for cycling triathlon is called the FTP test. More common nowadays is the more popular term. You do not need a lab to do this test. It can be done on a trainer that has a power meter. So you can use a comfy trainer, you can use a tax trainer, you can use a power meter, which concerns of crankbase like cork ones, wheelbase versus power tap, as well as something called pedal-based power meters such as the Garmin Vectors. This test is basically done in 20 minutes, all you can do, and from here we calculate your threshold. Pretty simple to do, all you have to do is be motivated. So that's how we do a FTP test here at TCR. It's 20 minutes all out, and hopefully there's nothing left at the end. So that summarizes today everything about threshold, from the FTP style testing it, to the lab side, to the blood lactate side. See you on our next video.